I think that the Underground Railroad in the U.S., tied to Canada and Mexico, is the greatest example we have in this country of a mass interracial movement that succeeded. And yet almost no one, including abolitionists, refer to it in a real way, like in terms of the nuts and bolts technique of how people made that work.
Hi, welcome back. This is the third episode of the Black Walk interview series. In this episode, we interview Professor Hamlin and Professor Aougab. Enjoy!
Structure this. What do you want?
Did you say structure?
Yes. Oh. I mean, ask a question because it's easier for me too.
Yeah. So I guess like first would just be just so it's like on the thing, your name and like your affiliation with Brown, like department, those types of things, and then we'll get into the cues.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Professor Francoise Hamlin. I am associate professor in history and Africana studies, and I've been here for 11 years.
Oh wow.
I know. It's been a while. But I was also a student activist in my day. So I've been on both sides, and I appreciate the work that students do, and kind of the steep learning curve that comes with the work that you're doing.
So just like get right into it. Like, what are some opinions, or like what do you know about the walkout? What have you heard? Some reactions. What do you know?
What do I know? So I was teaching the class in 1968. We talked about the walkout. We had alumni come talk about it and think about Brown then and now. And being part of Africana, it was part of the work that we were doing here as a department. So I know sort of the official stories and all of that. So what I learned about the walkout 18 from students in that class who came to me and said, "Did you hear about this?" And I was like, "No, I did not hear about this. What's going on?" And apparently at that point, it was almost happening, or it was that week, or the day before. It was that Sunday before. Someone called me at home and said, "The students are doing a walkout." I'm like, "Not my students. What you know?" Because I'm sure I would have heard of it. No one's come to me. We've been talking about this. So I was like, I have no idea what's going on. And so I couldn't even be supportive because I had no idea what was going on. And then, but I was concerned that no one had come and said, talk to me about, and then come to me and talk to me about the process and asked for advice or support in that sense. But again, it was like, okay, well, let me know what happens. And then I found out that on that Tuesday, there was a big meeting and folks argued a lot. It was one of those snake-length meetings, right, that lasted all night. This is what I heard. And there was arguments and lots of hurt feelings. And, you know, so I kind of talked to, you know, we had a conversation, and I can't even remember who it was. Honestly, I cannot remember the students because there were a few of them. But it was a sense of frustration about inclusion, about notice, about organizing. And so so what I tried to do is say, well, we're studying this. This is a learning curve. Everyone's learning how to do this. And I'm sure the organizers have figured out what they did right and what they didn't do right, and how to improve it. And I also did give credit to you guys for calling it off and or listening. That's right, because it shifted into something else, right? And I really appreciated that because I'm like, all right, you're listening, so which means you learned, and that's a good thing. So even if the initial goal was to recreate a walkout, I think what you created was something that was more helpful and more useful for the community, because there was a moment of dialogue, and that's really important, right? So I'm glad to meet you finally, and I would love to have another meeting with you to think about what you learned from that process moving forward, and how I could support whatever it is you're doing and thinking. And so That's what I heard. And then I kind of just let it be because it wasn't my space. You know.
Were there conversations that you had with like other faculty in the department about what was happening, and like what were those conversations like?
It wasn't just the department. So as a department, we didn't have those conversations. So it was other Black faculty around because I co-run the Faculty of Color Network. So as part of that, I get to meet a lot of folks out around the campus, which doesn't happen because, as small as Brown is, it's pretty parochial in terms of how much we socialize with each other or work with each other, just because we're always working and so really focused in and, purposefully divided sometimes. So the network is to kind of bring everyone together and have these conversations and be supportive on the faculty level, because there's still issues that need to be hashed out at the level for us, and to be supports for each other in what can be a hostile space. As you're realizing as students, it can be that way for faculty too. So we were having one-on-one conversations, nothing formal about that, with faculty who were like, who they called me asking me for information, thinking I knew. Right. So those were the kind of conversations. And so that was the criticism, was that, how come you don't know? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the folks who are running it. They're not folks who've been in my class. I don't know. And I'm surprised at that.
Yeah.
So that was my sort of main criticism, is like, I would have preferred you to have come to me earlier, so we would have had it, even the outcome might have been different or not. But again, it's a learning curve. So and that's why I'm really sort of proud of you. I'm actually really proud of you that you're doing this work afterwards, because that means you're actually trying to do something. You're doing it for the right reasons. And so your heart's in the right place, and I appreciate that. So I want you to know that. This is a good thing.
What, did you have, what did you want to, ask, the organizers, during the whole process? Did you ever have, man, if I could just, get them, and, I would just ask them this, one thing?
I think if I had met with you earlier, while you were thinking about it, do you need a pencil?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
I think I would have asked how much you knew, if you had talked to alumni, and then connected you with alumni. Because I think if you had alumni support, it would have helped you. And having talked to alumni afterwards, they said the same thing. We would have loved to have, given that institutional knowledge and, asked why you wanted to recreate as opposed to do something different. And those kind of questions, kind of just ask you questions to think about what you were doing in a more pointed way, not to dissuade you, because I would never do that. I think you have to do what you have to do, but but I don't think you made informed choices. I might be wrong, but that's what it felt like from this side, hearing what was happening. So that would have been something I would have helped you hash out. Right? Because again, I don't know the politics of what's going on among the students. Clearly, there's a lot going on, and and in our class, some of that came out in terms of intra-group, and even what's that group? What is the group? And then the intra-group dynamics that are peculiar to Brown in some ways. But helping you perhaps navigate some of that if I had known about it earlier. But also, again, it's like, I want to take a hands-off position because it is a student group. Students having to learn the process, and I will always acknowledge that students have their own learning curves. And you don't want older people telling you what you should or shouldn't do or think, because that's the whole point of why you don't like it. And that's not our job. The job is to be the safety net for when stuff goes down, and to be a place of where you can come for advice if you want it, and be a place of support. Not the "I told you so," even though sometimes you do need to hear that, right? And I would only do that with students who I worked with and knew well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then it would be taken in the spirit in which it was given. But also, I think what you learn now is going to shape the kind of activist you're going to end up being or evolve into, because it's always an evolution. But the lessons you learn now are going to help that, because I know that was the case for me, right? Having done that in England, there's a very robust student union in England, and I was I helped to run the student union and this is like campus-wide, so it's not just black students, campus-wide student union in my university, and I was the women's officer. So what the women's officer was doing was dealing with all the date rape cases, some real hardcore stuff, right? You'd go marching into the administration saying, "You're not doing this for our students," and then they'd have to sit me down and say, "Well, this is the law. This is what we can do." I'm like, "Oh, okay," right? And they're rolling their eyes thinking, "Yeah, the last women's officer did exactly the same thing," right? So that kind of thing. So coming out this side, I'm like, okay, they let me do that because I need to learn that way. And it made me a better officer, but also made me think about what I do in the classrooms in a different way, given the material I teach. So I'm always in a position where these things come up because of the material I teach and the kind of students who will take the class. And so kind of integrating that and having those spaces in class to talk about, where you are as students, and kind of give my feedback and advice, but that's all it is. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You make your own mistakes. We all have to, right? It's just being able to make your mistakes safely. So you're not endangering yourself, and, however that endangerment might be, sort of mental health and physical health, whatever. But also, there's growth there. Everything's should be a learning process. And so I'm, like I said, I'm going to say it again. I'm glad that you've made this into a learning process, because a lot of people don't. Right? And if you're going to be a good leader, you have to learn from your mistakes. I don't even know if you think you made them. I don't know. But this is how I'm thinking about it. It's like you're learning from the process. And that's going to make you better organizers and activists, because you have to be a good listener. Because leadership, and you've learned that from this class, leadership is from behind. And so you need to listen to the folks you're leading, or else then you're going to look around and they're not behind you. And you've learned that lesson, and I love that, and I really commend you, because I don't think a lot of brown students do that enough, because they're used to being their big fish, right? We talked about this. You're all leaders. You all come here as leaders in your old schools. And then you come here and you're like, someone has to be a follower. You can't all be leaders. Yeah. And so how do you learn to step back? How do you have the grace to do that? When is it appropriate to do that? And when is it appropriate to say no? You need to step back. And that's all just learning. And you're learning about yourself, but learning about the community you're in, learning about who you're leading, learning about why you're doing something. Are you doing something for it to be a historical moment, or you actually trying to do it to do something else? And all of those are questions that, in hindsight is important, and you're doing it, and I'm really happy that you're doing it. I've said that a lot, but it's true. You're doing this.
I'm happy we're doing this thing.
I have one kind of question. So I think one of the things that happened a lot for like the group of people that were like organizing was we had like a lot of anxiety about involving staff and faculty, because we were worried that if we did, we put them at risk, or like potentially like And I think this happened because a lot of the people had interfaced with the BCSC, which had a lot of experiences where people had to have plausible deniability and all of these types of things. Is that a type of concern that you think, is that a legitimate concern? Is it not? If it is a concern, how should people navigate it, or what's the best way to engage faculty so that they're not at risk and they can engage in the best ways possible? Or is it just not something that people should really worry about? Or is there also differences depending on whether people are tenured or what capacity with which they're involved?
There's definitely that. So there's the tenurability part of it that might stop faculty from being involved. I can't speak for the whole faculty. I can't speak for the staff because, everyone's in different positions and everyone will give different advice. So there's that. So there are personal decisions that everyone has to make wherever they are, whether they're students or faculty or staff, right? I mean, that's just... I think I was asked to sign something or add my name to something, and again my recollection is fuzzy because I'm old and it happened, it's done. Move on. The brain needs to dump some information in order to take on more, but and I think for me it was okay, this is an odd way to include faculty because it's after the fact, right? So I think for me, my door's always open, right? Because of the work I teach. And I think that's the way to think about who to approach. Who's doing this work? Who's teaching this work? Because then there's some knowledge behind that. Or not. So you have to come in and make yourself uncomfortable, right? And do the face-to-face and find out who your allies are. Because I don't think you can guess all the time. And I know there's been political issues at the BCSC. I've not, been here long. This is what happens. And so the staff, again, there's also been staff turnover at the BCSC. So there's that. And then that space is different from this space because this is an academic unit as opposed to the social cultural side of it, which this can be too because of the arts part component and the work we do, right? And the courses we teach. That's where the blurry line comes in, right? It's how much integration should there be? Well, that's individual and that depends on courses. It depends on people, students, but that's meant to be more student run and autonomous from this. It's meant to be a space for you guys where we're not in there too. So that's why you don't see us in there as much unless we were being invited in. Because that's how it should be, I think. And I was faculty fellow there a couple of years ago, probably before your time. And I came in and did a few things, but I only did what I was asked to do. I didn't come in and impose, There's enough work around. There's enough work to keep us all busy all the time. And it's not my job to police whatever's going on around among the students, because I have to treat everyone the same. And when you're in my classroom, you're in my classroom, and I don't need to know that this person's with this person, this person hates that, but I don't need to know all that unless it becomes an issue in the classroom. Sometimes if folks, I always talk about my classroom as Vegas, right? Whatever we say in here stays in here, but this office is the same way too. So different students will come in and and I'll do my mama bear stuff and listen and hug and do all of that, but you'll never know who was in here because you need to have that space. Not all faculty are like that. You need to figure out who is. All of you need to figure it out, right? And who you might go to might not be the person you can go to. Right, just because of personal dynamics, gender, race, whatever. So that's a really long-winded answer. I don't even know if I answered your question. Did I answer your question?
Definitely.
You did.
Also, a little curious about what faculty involvement has looked like in previous actions or student-led things. What ways did faculty contribute or not contribute? And your thoughts around that.
Again, it depends on the faculty. I tend to be a more... So part of it is I'm on a visa. I'm a green card holder, and with the political climate the way it is, a lot of us have to be careful in a different way about political activism. Like, big P political activism. So there's a public-facing dimension to activism that I choose not to take because I don't think I'm as effective, because there's only so much I can say publicly, or I'm willing to say publicly, because I think I could do more work behind the scenes, and I do. So that's where I do my activism, and students oftentimes don't know what I'm doing because I'm protecting them too, right? Yeah. And I can't say it. So even the thinking about the DApp, I was part of the back group working with the provost on that, and there's a few of us who were. But it seems like, oh, she doesn't do any activism, she doesn't care. I'm like, okay. Right? And that's when the thick skin of having done this a few years, and it's like, all right, you'll never know, and that's fine. But that's what I can do. So we all have, as faculty, as people, have different skill sets that we can offer. So it is very individual. So when you think about the faculty doesn't exist. We're all individuals with our own ideas, thoughts, passions, skill sets. Some people are way more comfortable with the mic, standing up there with you when you're doing your marches. I think I'm more effective having that private conversation with the provost. Because I have access in a different way, right? And so stuff will get done behind the scenes that you'll never know about. But I can see that I've been able to do something. Okay. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I cared about credit, if I cared about all of that, you would know about it. But that's not why I do it, and that's not how I roll, and some people are just more forward facing. Again, it's sort of just different skill sets and different priorities, and different ways of thinking about institutional change, because it has to outlive you guys. It has to, or else what's the point, right? And then your work will be forgotten if it doesn't, and then someone will come in and do it again. Right? So that's how I feel about it. So even the question is wrong.
It's too broad. It has to.
Yeah, because you're the faculty, the staff. You can't do that. And Brown is really about individuals. That's what you can say about this place. It really is about individuals and individual relationships at every level. And when things happen at the administration level, it's because of relationships and conversations, and it's kind of that smoke-filled room kind of negotiation. But that smoke-filled room has opened up, so it's including a lot more people, but it's still that way. So a lot of stuff at Brown's not written down, which just becomes custom, or this is the way we do it. And I'm like, that means you can change. Hasn't been written down, right? And so having different permutations of administration, right? As the administration shifts and changes, you have a new dean of college, so things are going to shift a bit. There's, so everything has to kind of fall into place. It might take a full year. You don't have the luxury of a full year. You're only here for 4, right? But for us, it's like, it's going to take a year. And you're like, we want it now. And we're thinking more long term. And that's the frustration that students have, and I get it. Totally get it. Because that's normal.
Speaking of being here past the 4 years, you were here when the seniors were first years and their seniors. What happened? The 2015?
Yeah, there was like a blackout or some type of action.
You were.
Was it the Ray Kelly incident?
I think it was after that.
After that. Oh. See, again, I'm like, what cycle was that? There was protests where folks went to the provost's office, and and some of our graduate students in Africana did that too. Were head of that, and they're no longer here. So that helped develop the DIA. Yeah.
Do you... Well, the thing, like, the hardest part about not about all of this, but one of the challenges was, like, you know, the seniors would be, like, bringing that up and, like, be like, you're doing this, like, all over. Like, we already tried this in 2015, like, you know, and we were just sitting there like, no one told us. You know, because again, there's nothing like this, you know, that's being handed down to, like, first years or anything, like, where it's, like, experiences of the people from, like, 2015, and they're no longer here, and it's, like, really...
They've taken it with them.
Yeah, and it's really, like, hard to, like, get that information. But, yeah, I was just curious to know if you know any of the challenges they faced, or, like, or any of that, or, like...
Well, the challenges that you're facing. Not feeling heard, not feeling valued, things take too long, which it does, but that part of the process is not going to change because of alumni. So there's a whole level of how things change in the university, and alumni have a lot of power, and so change has to happen very slowly because there's an education component to that, of slowly sort of bringing new ideas out there and letting it settle, having whole conversations about it, and then bringing it back in and making it policy. Things have moved a lot since 2015 because of the president and the provost. This permutation of you know, administration have prioritized this. It doesn't look like it to you guys, but considering what we had before in terms of the DAP, but even implementation to the DAP. So we've talked in our class, you can have all the laws and policies, if no one enforces it, that's all it is. It looks good on paper. They're actually implementing it. So in this department, you don't see it as much because we've always been diverse, we've always had these ideas, it's always been in the syllabus and all of that. But in some other departments, it's rocked their world. Right? You might not see it yet, but things are happening. The conversations are being forced in communities on campus that have never had to deal with it. And because of the open curriculum, you have no idea because you chose not to be in those spaces to start with, right? And that's the frustration, right? So things will happen, but you won't necessarily know about it because you're not concentrating in that field, or because of perhaps the lack of, right, of diversity, whatever. So changes are happening. They're happening at every level. Even the Board of Trustees has changed composition, so it's starting to look different. There are more of us. So when I first came here and I got tenure in 14, it was me and 4 other black women tenured. And I'm not even considered, and I'm not American, so I'm counted, but I'm not counted because, like, one foot in the international list of internationals. Now there are way more, like probably at least double that, and most of it is because of direct hires with tenure, right? So we're still trying to tenure more black women, right? So the next challenge, and I've brought this up, is that yes, we're bringing in younger faculty of color. Now we need to make sure they get tenure, and then we need to look at who's leaving, because we don't look at the back door. We only look at the people coming in, and that's how they're counting. But if we're not looking at the back door, we don't know who's in the house, and that's a really bad analogy. But you get it.
No, that's good.
But the numbers don't show a rise all the time. Sometimes it still shows stagnant, even though it looks like there's floods of people coming in. They're also being recruited out because other universities have their own DAPs, and they're trying to increase their numbers. So they're pulling people out. So the question is, why aren't people staying? Right? You need to start paying people some more. You need to do better packages to keep people here, retention packages. And the folks like me who do all of the dog work, right? We're being tempted out elsewhere. But if you lose me, you lose 2 people. Right. Really.
Right.
Because when you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, well, you're not publishing enough. It's like, no, because I'm doing work at the university that needs to be done. And the people who are publishing a lot aren't doing that work. So you're valuing that over this, yet this is meant to be your policy and your priority. So start balancing out how that gets rewarded. And that's just the faculty level, right? And so you have the staff level, you know. So this is really complicated. And usually the last group to feel those effects, and you won't even know you're feeling it because you're not necessarily seeing the change. It looks the same to you, but it's happening. It just, you know, it's an institution, and all institutions the academy is not designed to change quickly because it's just not. It's full of people who take a long time to think about things and then implement it, and then everything needs to be a discussion or 5, which is very frustrating for me too, because I'm like, didn't we have this discussion? Can we actually come to a resolution that we're going to do this? Can we actually leave the meeting a little at least one step forward from where we started it, so we don't have to meet again, because I don't have time for this. This could have been an email.
Yeah.
And I'm that kind of a person. So I'm like, this could have been an email. And you've just wasted an hour of my life. I want it back. That's me. So a lot of my faculty, you know, my colleagues don't necessarily like to be in my space because I'm too blunt. Because I don't do the tap dance. I haven't got time for this. You know, I prefer to be talking to you. I mean, seriously, I prefer to be talking to you guys than having a meeting with people who just want to hear themselves talk. And there'll always be that in the academy. And whatever profession you're in, you're going to find that. Right? So how do you manage that? And it's really about managing that for yourself and your own sanity. And then how do you move around it and get the work done anyway? Right? And it's quiet work. It's that quiet activism that I prefer to do because I know I do it well. I've seen the changes, and I also enjoy it. I enjoy the mentoring part. I enjoy that part because that's when I see the growth. Right, I see you start as first years and finish as seniors and go out in the world and do amazing things, and I see how. And you will see it when you leave. You won't appreciate it now, but once you leave here, you'll realize what Brown gave to you, or what you were able to take from Brown. Let's put it that way. You'll see the value in what you endured here when you leave, which is always kind of sucks, right?
Right.
But that's why I'm always trying to say again. I hope this was your year to make that step. So I hope you enjoy the rest of it, right? And step back and let other people take it over, and you've archived what you've done, and you still be involved, but now you're the elders. You've had the experience, so you can start paying it forward in different ways, right? And there's always going to be work to be done, always. So it's about balancing that, but you're here to get your grades. You're here to get out of here. Do you know what I mean? You're here to get trained in a certain, whatever it is you're getting trained in, and to find that balance between why you're actually here to get the education and the work that you feel you need to do to be whole. And don't give up one thing for the other, because it's a thankless job at whatever level. And you might as well know that now. Because the people who are actually doing the work don't get the credit for it. You know that. You've seen it in all of the movements out there. You've seen it. So what kind of person do you want to be? So you have to make that decision for yourself. I can't make that decision for you. I just know the kind of person I want to be, and it's thankless, and I get criticized for it from the students, and I hear it, and I'm like, okay, you will never know my little secrets, and that's okay, and I don't worry about it, because eventually they figure it out,
Right.
And if they don't, that's okay.
Hey, someone will figure it out.
And if they don't, that's okay.
That's okay.
right?
I like that.
Because again, you're going to be gone in 4 years.
Right.
I mean, then I can adopt that attitude. It's like, okay, you won't, but there'll always be another. It's okay. I don't worry about it. My ego's not wrapped up in that, right? Because I have to live with myself, and so that's it. Can I leave here if I ever leave here, thinking, okay, I left this place better than how I found it,
Right.
because I was able to do something and I can see what I did, right? And we all have to ask that question when we transition from wherever we are to wherever we're going. At the different levels in our lives. So, so I hope that you take comfort in that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that feel good about what you did and learn from what you did. And pay it forward. So help the next set of folks who are going to try and reinvent the wheel. Seriously. To say, look, no. Instead of saying, don't do it, right? Which is you felt the seniors were doing to you. Educate and say, this is what we did, and this is what this is what worked and what didn't work for us at this time. If we could do it again, this is what we would do. And then all you can do is give that advice and then let the students make their own mistakes, just like you did. But be that space of counsel for them and let them know that, and don't try and do it for them. No, I sound like Oprah, but that'll make you teachers in a way that you didn't know you were ever going to be. Right? You become the elders of that group. I know. You're right. Those freshmen are going to come in, and you're going to feel like elders, right? Because they're going to look like high school students, which they are. They're transitioning in, and that was you, right?
Yeah.
Don't you feel that?
Yeah.
And you're not a senior yet. You wait. Next year, you'll be like, oh, you look like babies. So imagine how I feel. Right? When you're actually young enough to be my kids. And I was there. And it doesn't feel like that long ago. But it was. It was in the last century. Like, way. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. So you guys keep me young because these issues are still live, and they'll always be live because you're here. So they'll always be fresh because it's fresh for you. So I see it the way you see it, but I also know more than you do. But it's not for me to tell you that,
Right.
or to be that older person that you're trying to fight against anyway, right? Because that's not helpful.
Right.
So, but there's things I could do in my classroom. When students come to the class, I can start embedding this stuff so that we end up having those discussions that are helpful, hopefully. Hopefully they're helpful.
They are. I think they are.
Even though she was misquiet in the class.
I mean, I was quiet, but I was listening.
I know you were listening. But it's like, I couldn't read you.
Yeah.
So you'll be like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is she just like...
She just cut me off now. I'm like...
She's just cursing me out in her head right now. I don't know. I have no idea.
Absolutely not.
I don't know. But again, I can't worry about that.
Yeah.
Right? I can't worry about that.
Truly. No. No.
Because if I take things and that's why I always say, I can see your faces, I see the eye rolls, I see the people half asleep, and I'm like, you're all there. I see everything. And I think there's a sense in which folks, you guys don't realize that we see you.
Yeah. Like, even not even a little bit. Like, not even a little bit.
I see you. And I am paying attention. Even though it doesn't look like I'm paying attention. Totally paying attention. I might not know your name. I might not, have that one-on-one, but I recognize, like, okay, this is a trend. This person comes in late every day, or this person's rolling their eyes, or this person's doodling, and they don't think I'm doodling. They don't think I can see them doodling, but they're doodling, and I can see it. Yeah. Do we pay attention? Some of us. I mean, again, I'm doing that generalizing. I pay attention.
No, but I'm paying attention too, so know that. So just know that you're being watched just as much as you're watching.
I know that. Especially as women of color, that's one thing we talk about as faculty and as grad students who are teaching. It's like, what do you wear? so that folks are any woman in whatever position where you're standing in front of a group of people, the self-presentation is important. And so just being aware, even if you don't care, to be aware that you don't care and that other people might care more than you or are judging you and not listening to you. Right. So, yeah. No, I know. That's why I have to fix my face a lot. But there's a face, and I don't do that very well. But there's, a part of the semester where I know that I don't have to police myself because it's pretty clear that I've created a space of openness, and that's what I wanted to do. I'm just not I don't vocalize it openly because I just want it to happen, and you guys think it's happening I'm like, no, it was designed that way.
I spent time.
Yeah, I mean, and I wanted it to be that space, so
I think
hopefully it worked.
I think it worked. Well, I don't know. I really think that having those conversations are important, even if people say stuff I don't agree with. I think it's still like important that
you're listening to each other.
Right. I think that's like also one of the most important. Like, I think the one thing I did say this whole semester was that it's important that when we are doing this work or when we're like doing all of this stuff, it's important to like, we don't have to agree with each other, but like we don't have to like stop each other too, because I don't necessarily agree with like the people that like want to like go into like the university and like do it that way. Like, I personally, but for me, I just want to burn the whole thing down. But like, that's just me because I'm like, that's how I am. But like, that doesn't, like, I'm not about to stop anyone, who wants to go do that. And I like, I understand, like, valid, like, do your thing. But then also, I just expect that same respect back with like my work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but even though you might not with the whole burn thing down.
Right.
Let me get my stuff.
Right. Let me turn back.
Yeah. No, I think, yes, listening to each other, respecting that everyone is thinking something different. But also, where are the places where you do meet? Because there's always going to be something.
Right.
And then try and work on that.
Right.
Because actually you'd be more effective, united, because if the university knows, and they know, that the black students are divided, what do you think is going to happen? We've done it in our class. Historically, what happens? Nothing. Because they know they don't have to.
Right.
But if you're all united, and there's one thing, I mean, yes, it becomes a single issue event. Whatever. That's okay. It's better than what's happening now, which is nothing.
Right.
And you guys are just squabbling in the corner, and that's what it looks like. Kids are fighting. Let them fight. We'll deal with the winners. Seriously. I mean, they'll never say that because they're not that.
Right.
But I'm using that, and
That's interesting.
And honestly, do you blame them?
No. No. I would do the exact same thing.
So that means the strategy is wrong. Your strategies are wrong.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Right.
So the fact that you guys had that meeting, as painful as it probably was, right? And hard as it was, and from what I hear, there was a lot of tears shed from them again. And I don't know who was shedding what, but I was like, okay, that sounds deep. You did it. And I really respected that. Even though I didn't know who you were, I was like, that's deep. That shows maturity and that you're actually doing it for the right reason and you actually want to learn from this. And that's good. So keep whatever it made you do that, keep doing that. I think you're on the right track. Because historically speaking, and we've done the history, that's what makes the change. That's it. And you've seen it now, right? You've taken the class, you've seen it. That's how it works.
I have a bunch of questions related to.
I need to go very soon, but okay.
I guess like one last question then would be on one thing that like I know some of us were straddling with and like working through was the kind of like more like abolitionist approach to like the university versus like a reformist one, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And
You're trying to make me lose my job.
but
You're like, oh shit.
oh no. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about like navigating that line where overlap might exist, and also because I think one of the things about finding a single issue too is that given and especially given the demographics of people who are here and the makeup of like Brown and like the people who are here, how do we find a single issue that is also something that maybe is leaning more toward like an abolitionist kind of like approach, like because I feel like a lot of the do you see the tension?
Yes, and you're not gonna find that consensus. I can tell you now. Not with the black populations that they're bringing in now. I mean, you know that,
Right.
So while you can think about that as being a viable potential for change, that cannot be the only one.
Right.
Because it's very extreme. It is the most extreme, like let's burn the shit down, right? That's not going to happen in your lifetime here. So what can? How can you... Right. So the idea of consensus within the group might be impossible. But even just listening to each other and understanding where each other's coming from. So if you're having to talk to students who are of color, but the only commonality is that you're of color, are you okay with that? And is that okay? In the end, I think, yes, I am of color. I'm a black woman, but I'm not American. So that separates me from hugs, right? Historically, but I also will get stopped by police just like every other person of color, because that's what we have in common.
Right.
Then that's what you start with. Brown police. The policing of brown. Everyone can get on board with that. Because I'm sure everyone's had to deal with that, no matter if they're African-born, Caribbean-born, first generation, legacy, whatever. Right? And from there, these other things are going to start. The tendrils will start.
Right.
Because those questions are going to have to you're going to have to go into the heart of what this university stands for and what the policy is. And what does protection mean? Protection from who? All of those questions start bubbling up, which are all questions you're asking anyway. They're all asking from different spaces. Do you see what I mean? Is that a pressing issue? Maybe not, because we haven't had any incidents necessarily. I mean, there are always incidents, but like nothing egregious like there have happened on other campuses. But maybe there is. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming, right? Because you have to figure out what that is. But the abolitionist stuff. I mean, and I'm thinking about the work on prison abolitionists. I'm sure during slavery, the idea of abolition was so far out there as well in the beginning. So does that mean you throw that away? No, because clearly it worked eventually.
Yeah.
But it took a century or two.
In a war.
And then you can actually ask, did it actually happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did it morph?
Right.
But knowing your history, seriously, knowing the history is so important. And I'm a historian, I'm totally biased, but I see it. But understanding that process and the length of time should help you at least breathe and not feel the urgency in the same way. So I always say, do history classes, do history club with the right people.
Right.
No, but there are others of us who do that, because I think understanding how it works and how people work will help you understand, okay, this is why this is happening right now. And you're more empathetic to that. Empathy is part of this, and it's hard to to empathize with people you don't agree with, but you kind of have to.
Right.
Because if we're trying to build this beloved community and this better world and actually be Christian in the real sense, you know, whether you're Christian or, I mean, I think all religions have this tenet of kindness and empathy, right? All of them. Then you can live with what you're able to do, you know?
Yeah.
There's a sense of peace that you can get for yourself so you don't die of a stroke by the time you're 30. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Right? That's part of the self-care and maintenance, but also then you can be more generous with your time and space and your teaching of it. I don't know, does that, again, I'm going into Oprah territory. But I do believe, I've seen it work. I mean, I feel like I've found a lot more peace with what I'm able to do when I'm able to do it and be able to absorb the criticism and understand where it comes from and understand it, but not have to take it in, internalize it, right? Because I know what I'm able to do. And then being able to verbalize it when folks come and talk to me about, I'm really frustrated that you did this. I'm like, okay, well, let me explain it to you, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all human beings on this thing and we're all trying to, you know, and maybe sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I am wrong and I will admit it. Well, maybe I won't, but no. I would. If, you know, if I could do things again, we all have that. If I could do it again. But that's my learning curve. I mean, I don't stop learning. And I don't have all the information. You know, I'm kind of plugged in a little bit more here now where I, you know, have access to it in a different way. Because folks do end up coming to, which is kind of weird, but I take, you know, whatever, that's my role. So people will come to me from different and tell me stuff. I'm like, okay, well, that matches that. Okay, this person needs to know this information because they didn't know it. Do you know what I mean? So that is useful because there's ways in which I can help that process even out because those two people aren't talking to each other, but they both talk to me. So I'm like, you need to know this. Maybe you need to talk and I don't need to be in that. So I don't know. Is this helpful?
It is helpful, yeah.
I feel like we just had therapy.
But therapy is
That's
helpful.
good. Yeah, that's
We
healing.
laugh.
I know. I need to charge. No, I'm not joking.
First question would just be like, what do you recollect of the...
First question is your name. Affiliation, you know,
Sure,
to Brown, that good stuff.
Of course. So my name is Tarik Aougab. For the next 2 weeks, I'm still in the math department at Brown. That's been my affiliation for the last 4 years.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
And I guess the second question is Noel's question. Is what did you hear about it? What reaction from students did you see, if you saw any, or faculty, or what do you know, or just like...
Sure. So I probably first heard about the walkout on Facebook. Just friends who were posting about it and spreading around the message, the platform, the asks. So from my perspective, it seemed like a very well organized action. It seemed like there were direct asks being made of administration that made sense. So that's how I came to know about it. The second part of your question was like, how did other faculty or
student reactions, if you saw any student reactions?
So I would say that the students I interacted with either reacted with a lot of enthusiasm or with complete indifference. It didn't really seem like there was anything in between. As far as the faculty are concerned, I would say same dichotomy, but 99% complete indifference, 1% enthusiasm.
Do you think that's like particular, like do you think other people would have had similar experiences in other departments, or do you think it like differed?
I can only speak for the math department, so I don't have that much interaction with other faculty, so I really can't say. I could just give you like exact, like concrete numbers, which is that we, as part of it, tried to get an open letter signed from Math and Applied Math in support of the demands being made and the activists who were organizing it. So like a couple of us reached out on Facebook and were told that that was something that would be appreciated. So we did that, and out of, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say like 20 to 25 faculty, and then like 40 graduate students in the math department. We had maybe like, I don't know, 7 or 8 people sign onto this thing, and then 2 people who actually came. So that's like, those are just like objective numbers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What is like, did you have any conversations with folks in the department, and like what were those like? Were they uncomfortable? Were they just like very like passing and quick? Did it like mean a lot, or did it like encourage like a lot of discussion, deep discussion, or was it like very surface level?
So yeah, it's a good question. With most of the faculty, so when we sent out an email to the department around this letter, and I think most of the faculty just outright ignored it. So that just like shut down the conversation pretty quickly. Amongst the people who eventually signed, there was a lot of conversation, because like those 8 people who signed, like they weren't going to sign necessarily right away, and they had a lot of questions, and they, you know, just like, you know, like I think people had a lot of concerns around like respectability type issues, and like maybe not surprisingly, the folks who were like more willing to sign in the first place were younger, and like so not established, not tenured necessarily.
Interesting.
And so like there were concerns about like what this would mean if they signed it, and could we tone down certain parts of the language, and then they'd be more willing to sign it. And so there was a lot of back and forth for that reason. But I wouldn't say, like, certainly not departmental wide, there wasn't like a meaningful conversation to be had.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, were there any other questions that people were asking, other than like ones around like respectability and sort of like were there other things that people were like nitpicky about, or like wanted to be like really thoughtful about, or like were unsure of, or thought was unclear?
Yeah, so I think so the way that like we presented it, first of all, was specifically to try to avoid that conversation. Like we didn't want to like get into this pick and like we weren't responsible for this platform. Like we were literally just playing like the smallest possible support role. So it's not right for us to like even get into that conversation. So like we tried to frame it as, you might have concerns about like points, like a couple of points in this very long platform, but like we're asking if you can just like put those concerns aside and think about this as like supporting students, and like we can have that conversation if you want later, but like we're not gonna like put out a letter that says we are in support of these things, but like not of these things. So I think that may have prevented some of that kind of nitpickiness. But I can't say for sure. I just know that's what we tried. And mostly the questions were coming from not whether, because we took that approach, we didn't get a lot of questions for us to say, we're not going to support this, only support that. We did get a lot of questions around, can we just make the grammar here seem a little bit less scary?
Yeah. That's real.
It's more like that, yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
I'm curious also, this is like a little tangential, but about the faculty in your department's response around like divest, or if like the things happening about that now, if anything's happening.
Oh yeah, so as far as I know, and I could be wrong, nothing is happening whatsoever.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, I haven't heard a single thing. Again, like I've heard about it through a couple of students who I know and just through Facebook. But again, like I would say that nothing is happening, and if I were to wager an educated guess, it would be that almost all the faculty would be worse than indifferent. They would be very anti-divest.
Really?
Yes, enthusiastically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know that there was like an email that was sent out to or like attempted to at least to be sent out to the entirety of the staff, or not the staff, the faculty. Did you read that email, or did you get that email?
The one from Paxson?
The one from students, the one from Brown Divest.
Oh, the one about the faculty meeting that was taking place?
Yeah,
I read it, yeah.
Were there any like responses to that, like among faculty the next day, or like did anybody say anything about it? I'm just curious.
So, to be completely honest, I was planning on going to that meeting because of the email that I got that were asking people who were in support of Divest to vote a certain way, right? Then soon after that email came out, the faculty got another email, about the meeting saying the vote is canceled. Actually.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, I'm moving. Like, I'm not going to go to this faculty meeting. So I don't know. I just wasn't there.
Fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
That's cool.
Curious a little bit about your thoughts on like the culture of like student activism here, and also like the role that you think faculty should or like shouldn't play in it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm qualified to say too much about student activism here, just because I've never been a student here. I don't have that experience. I think that ideally faculty should be playing like a supportive role. Like there's a balance between like being actually like against what students are trying to do, or just indifferent towards it, and then like kind of stepping up too much and not letting the students express their own voices, obviously. So yeah, I would just say that a lot of the movement politically that has happened on campus, at least in the 4 years I've been here, has been like instigated by students. So like I see it as a pretty important force of energy on campus, and I don't see faculty doing anything really that's worth talking about to support it.
Interesting. Do you think there are like tangible ways that it could be different, or like what tangible forms of support could look like? So I know you mentioned like the faculty letter, but I'm just thinking of like other things that might be circulating in your head or that you've seen before.
So yeah, I mean, I certainly don't have like a grand vision for how like faculty should or shouldn't be involved, but I think like there are lots of little things that could be happening that aren't happening. So like making very small things, like making announcements in your class, especially in a big lecture class. XYZ is happening this time, this place, like, you know, and then it could be supplemented with some kind of background information in an email or something that comes from not just you know, like forwarding the language that activists are using, but also like buttressing it with statements of support that are in the words of the actual faculty person, so that it's not just like, you know, I actually thought about this, like I'm supporting this, you should think about it too for yourself. And like opening yourself up to conversations around it, because like, especially again, like for all I know, all this is happening in humanities departments, and I would have no way of knowing. So, but in math there is a very, very, very strong like tendency for like instructors to like enforce this like very apolitical, like I am here, we are studying an objective thing, I'm here to guide you through these formulas, these logics, like that's my role in your life and nothing more. So just like not doing that, would be big.
I'm also a little curious about like the and I guess you can't you said earlier like you might not be able to speak to this like the segmentedness of like departments and like the cultures of like particular departments, but also do you have like is there ever like opportunities or like times where you interact with like other faculty or faculty in general from like other departments, and like when would you, if you do, see like other folks in like the math department? Like is there regular like meetings or like how does that work?
So like there, in at least as far as the math department is concerned, in my experience, there's very, very little opportunity to interact with faculty from other departments. Just very little. The faculty who I know from other departments are because I'm friends with them, and I became friends with them not because of Brown. And I just know them, and like from Providence, and like then that has led to things here and there. Like once we like you're in that department, okay, well now like I like you and we should like we could talk. But formal infrastructure in the math department for communicating across department is like almost non-existent in my experience. So as far as interacting with people in the math department, like we'll have like faculty meetings like, you know, once a month. They come usually with a very set agenda. Okay. There isn't all that much space to bring up a concern that you might just be feeling. They're also like, I don't know, like just horribly monotonous. You know, like it doesn't really feel like much happens in them. But you know, what do I know? Also, like I'm not here for much longer, and I think also like knowing that I was in permanent faculty made me like want to invest less in those meetings, just because like like it really does feel like it's one of the worst ways I could use my time.
So that's real.
So yeah.
Other question is, I know you said you heard some things or like saw some things through Facebook. Yes. I'm interested to know, is that like common of like other faculty? Because I know that I know like some staff and faculty or like have them on my Facebook, but I'd just be interested to know if it's true of a lot of other people, and if things are happening on Facebook, if other folks like see them or you would share them with other folks in the department, if that makes sense. Like for example, the video, I just wonder how many of like the faculty saw either the videos that were like released for like Divest or the Black Student Walkout.
Right. So, as far as Black Student Walkout is concerned, like all the faculty in the math department had the opportunity to see the video because we sent it out in our email asking for signatures on this open letter. I would guess that like most faculty on their Facebooks would not be connected to people who are posting it. Okay. Like even me, who's a faculty member, is Facebook friends with two other faculty LOL. In that department. So like I can't imagine that like a lot of faculty are like super in touch with like the undergraduates on Facebook. Yeah.
That's all that's coming to me in this moment, but I think this is super helpful.
I think this was really helpful. Yeah.
Are there other thoughts that you have, like generally, that are just like things that are on your mind now that?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, lots of thoughts. I was like pretty appalled, but not surprised by like Paxton's responses to both of these things we're talking about, to both the walkout and to the divestment referendum. I just, if you wanted a model for how administration or faculty should not interact with student activism, like that's it. Like, you just like completely shut it down in a unilateral way. But like also benefiting a lot from like the energy that's created by student activism because like that's Brown's brand.
Right.
That's like, oh, we're like this like progressive institution, and like we are, you know, leagues ahead of our like competing schools, and like look at us, like we like post about like issues that matter on our Facebook, and like so like they're taking that energy and they're capitalizing off of it, but like they're also managing it like in this very like just kind of oppressive way. So not surprising. I guess I also was at Yale before I came here, and it was just kind of striking to see the difference in how the schools would handle something like this, because like Yale, that's not Yale's brand. Like,
Yeah.
they don't market themselves by being this like progressive quote unquote place. Like they know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have any qualms about just like you just ignoring things or just shutting it down or just whatever. Like everything at Yale is like a power play, and like you make change either happens or not based very explicitly on whether like the administration has been backed into a corner, and like everybody knows that, including the administration, and somehow like it's more honest. Like
Yeah.
So it was weird coming here and seeing this face, but then clearly doesn't match with anything that actually happens. So
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
It is. Do you have any experience like doing political organizing, either like in your past or like even like now?
Some. So my partner of many years like is the person who got me involved. So she was really somebody who like sought out a lot of the organizing that like we've since gotten involved in Providence, and she's a community organizer now. So like I've just been like on the peripheral of that. But yeah, like I've not been too involved at all with what's happening at Brown, but in Providence I've been like a member of Direct Action for Rights and Equality that does like housing justice. And do y'all know Marco?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Just ran into him before this.
so, and then also with Providence Youth Student Movement. So yeah, some experience just over the time that I've been in Providence. So like I don't come from like a history of having a lot of experience with it, but the last 4 years I've been exposed to it.